Hello, and thank you for joining us on the Capitol Report on NTD television. I'm your host, Steve Lance. What's the government doing to lower costs for everyday Americans? Today, President Biden signed off on a new law to address shipping costs, and lawmakers on Capitol Hill passed a new bill to address food and fuel prices. But some House Republicans are calling it a missed opportunity to effectively tackle soaring prices. NTD's Melina Wisecup reports.
Today on Capitol Hill, lawmakers passed a bill designed to lower costs in the agriculture and energy sectors.
Our lowering cost has always been our ongoing theme for the American people.
It would give Americans more opportunity to buy E15 gasoline, which is cheaper than the standard gasoline. As for addressing food costs, there's a bipartisan measure to develop and expand the meat processing industry.
This is the first step towards lowering meat prices, but in addition to increasing processing capacity for American cattlemen and poultry producers, we need to go after anti-competitive practices in the meat industry.
This is one of the more controversial pieces of the package, which would allow the federal government more ability to crack down on so-called bad actors in the meat industry.
We need to slam the brakes on any policy that empowers more government bureaucrats and impoverishes the people.
The Meat and Poultry Special Investigator Act, introduced by Democrat Congresswoman Spanberger and Republican Congresswoman Miller Meeks, would create a new special investigator tasked with enforcing antitrust laws. The investigator would have subpoena and litigation power.
Now, there are a few good pieces of bipartisan legislation in this package, but our friends on the other side of the aisle refuse to allow these bills to receive their individual vote, instead using the good provisions here as pawns in their political messaging.
While the fate of this bill is unclear in the Senate, another bipartisan measure to fight inflation has already made its way to the president's desk.
To put a stop to shipping companies taking advantage of American families, farmers, ranchers, and businesses. Anything and everything that crossed the Pacific on a ship from Asia saw a price tag shoot up, and families and businesses felt the squeeze here at home.
Melina, we know there's also a bill in the pipeline to ramp up our economic competitiveness with other countries, specifically countries like China. Are we seeing any progress on that front, and how long can we expect it to take to see any results from these efforts?
Yes, Steve. So both the House and the Senate right now are in conference to hammer out the details for that bill that's meant to lower costs by boosting American manufacturing. And the fact that congressional leadership has taken this bill to a conference indicates that they're dedicated to reaching an agreement that both parties can vote yes on in order to get enough votes in the Senate to get this bill off to the president's desk. Now, they are aiming for an end of the summer deadline to send it to the White House. But I want to point out that all of these actions that have been taken by Congress and the White House lately will take some time to implement, so we shouldn't expect to see lower costs at the pump or in the grocery store anytime soon. Steve, back to you.
NTD's Melina Wisecup reporting. The bill protecting Supreme Court justices' families has passed in Congress and is now on Biden's desk to sign. It's reported that more police were sent to Justice Kavanaugh's home yesterday as protests continue outside of the justice's home. The bill passed the House with 396 votes in favor and 27 House members, all Democrats, against it. Attorney General Merrick Garland Wednesday voiced his support for the bill.
The Justice Department takes extraordinarily seriously any violence, criminal threats of violence, intimidation, harassment of the justices or of any government officials.
Justices' safety have come to the spotlight following the leak of a draft opinion on overturning Roe v. Wade. An armed man was arrested outside of Justice Brett Kavanaugh's home just last week when he was attempting to assassinate Justice Kavanaugh. Tension on Capitol Hill remains high as we await the Supreme Court's official ruling that will likely overturn Roe v. Wade. Congresswoman Mary Miller of Illinois has 7 children and 19 grandchildren, and we thought we'd get her perspective on this very contentious issue. Here's a look. Congresswoman Mary Miller, thank you so much for joining us on the Capitol Report.
It's great to be here.
Congresswoman, there's a lot of hysteria right now around the potential ruling to overturn Roe versus Wade. Taking the emotion out of it, at the end of the day, this ruling is not about religion, is it?
No, and the left and the Democrats are grossly exaggerating the impact of this. And of course, we're we support federalism, and whatever should be and can be returned back to the states, we support. And that's what this is going to do, is return the issue back to the states where it should have been.
So in the wake of Justice Kavanaugh having an attempt on his life, we saw that there was some legislation passed, thankfully, to increase security for justices' families. Is there anything else that can be done or should be done in this?
Well, I think toning down the rhetoric from our leaders. It's outrageous what they're saying. And also just the double tongue message that the Democrats and Pelosi and Biden have. I mean, look at the riots in 2020, and they totally have defended that, whether it was burning down of a police station, attacks on the police, burning down neighborhoods that they acted like was no big deal, and then now they're trying to act like they're against violence, and they're actually promoting it on our justices.
And on that note, we're also seeing not only the potential threat to Justice Kavanaugh, a lot of pro-life institutions, churches, pro-life centers are being attacked right now.
Yeah, it's terrible. And these people are not pro-choice, they're actually pro-abortion. From day one, they've been lying to the women. I'm just very strongly opposed to how they handle the issue. I can't think of any other medical procedure where you're not given all the information that involves a surgery or a procedure. Like Illinois has now passed the most egregious abortion law in the country, where it's taken away parental consent, and our young girls down to the age of 12 can access an abortion without parental consent. And, they're lying to the girls. They don't give them the proper information. And also, like my kids couldn't even have an eye appointment without my consent. You can't go on a field trip without parental consent, but you can access an abortion. These people are pro-abortion.
So, I mean, to go back to the point of 12-year-olds going into these abortion centers, what types of alternatives are there to an abortion, and are you concerned that these things aren't being presented to these kids when they go in?
Yeah, well, the number one thing that I want to bring up is parents have their own child's best interests at heart, and to cut parents out of any decisions that are being made that have to do with medical procedures or life and death issues like this is just, we've gone off the rails, if that's where we are as a culture. But obviously, there's side effects, there's consequences. You don't just do away with the baby. I mean, these girls are going to have long-term psychological and perhaps physical side effects from this. But they can. There's like the pro-life centers. They're there to support the families and the girls, and also adoption is an issue. I know my daughter has been on an adoption list for a long time, but fortunately, some 17-year-old girl chose her to adopt her baby, and she recently was able to bring this little baby home, who, by the way, has Down syndrome. A lot of people would say his life wasn't worth having, but anyway, our daughter and her husband and sons are thrilled to be able to adopt this baby.
Well, it's very moving, really. Congratulations.
Thank you. He's adorable.
So just back to the Department of Justice, when we're seeing these pro-life institutions being firebombed, we've heard a lot of talk about domestic terrorism. Right. Do you think that this constitutes at least an inquiry with all of these institutions being attacked?
Of course it does, which when I go back to the district, my constituents are, they're overwhelmed by how they've been betrayed by their elected representatives. My district's very conservative. We went 70% for President Trump, very pro-life. They love that President Trump was the most pro-life president that we've ever had, that he fought on the offense for the people, even in light of life. But the people are dismayed about it, and they're excited when I tell them we're going to take back the House, we're going to elect fighters like President Trump, we're going to fight on the offense for you. But they're very excited to hear that Jim Jordan may be the next head of judiciary. They, along with myself, we want to have hearings on a lot of these issues, and that would be one of them.
Congresswoman Mary Miller, thank you.
You're welcome.
Arrests of illegal immigrants at the southern border set a new record last month. This is according to data released this week by the Biden administration. Nearly 240,000 arrests were recorded in May, breaking the previous record that was set in April. About 70% of those arrested were single adults. Family units were about a quarter, and a small percent were unaccompanied minors or children who were picked up arriving at the border alone. Most of the illegal immigrants, about 60%, were processed under Title VIII, which means they were released into the United States while their cases sit in backlogged immigration courts. To discuss the ongoing border crisis, I sat down with Colorado Congressman Ken Buck not long ago. He urges President Biden to visit the border and address the humanitarian problem unfolding down there as we speak. Congressman Ken Buck, thank you so much for joining us again.
It's my pleasure.
Congressman, I want to talk to you about illegal immigration. It's being overshadowed right now by many other crises that are taking place. How serious of an issue is this facing the country right now?
Well, you know, it's the number one issue for the people I talk to in eastern Colorado. They care deeply about what's happening at our border. It is a crisis, as you mentioned, and it's a crisis that's been created by the Biden administration. The Trump administration was moving in the right direction, had a Remain in Mexico a Remain in Mexico policy. That policy has been changed by the Biden administration. Title 42, the Biden administration is trying to change that. The wall is no longer being built. There's so many good policies that the Trump administration had initiated and would have completed that the Biden administration has reversed itself on, and we're seeing the numbers skyrocket right now.
Congressman, why do you think it is that the president has not visited the southern border with all of these things that are, revolving down there?
Yeah, I think he doesn't want to take blame for what's going on, and it's too bad. He should visit. He should listen to his advisors who have to be telling him that there's a serious problem, a humanitarian problem. This summer, we're going to see people trying to come to this country who are going to die in the deserts, either getting here or after they arrive. And so, terribly sad that the United States isn't acting more responsibly.
Congressman, let's talk about the human trafficking aspect. I mean, this isn't a talking point. There's real stories out there. How concerning is this one aspect of illegal immigration at the southern border?
Yeah, so human trafficking is terrible. I was at the southern border a few months ago. I could see the impact of human trafficking as I was there. I heard the stories from the Border Patrol officers, and a very serious problem. It's not a problem that's being dealt with. The drug trafficking problem is very serious. We have fentanyl issues. Other drugs coming across the southern border. We have people who are being undetected who are terrorists coming into this country. We have all kinds of problems because they have left the border open.
You touched upon the drug problem. Are you hearing anything from constituents or the people of Colorado that fentanyl is actually reaching the state?
Oh, it's reaching the state, and it is the number one cause of death for 18 to 45-year-olds in the United States. And so many of the people that I have talked to know a neighbor, a relative who has died from fentanyl overdose. Not even people who are trying to take fentanyl or heroin or anything else, but just they may be smoking marijuana and it's laced with fentanyl and they die from the fentanyl. So it's a very serious problem in this country.
Congressman Ken Buck, thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Anthony Fauci video conferenced in to join a Senate hearing on the federal response to the COVID-19 pandemic. He tested positive for the CCP virus yesterday and was at home during the video call. In the hearing, Senator Rand Paul had a chance to press Fauci about royalty payments he had received for work at the National Institute of Health and why these were not disclosed. Paul said that from 2010 to 2016, 27,000 royalty payments, over $193 million in total, were paid to 1,800 NIH employees.
Can you tell me that you have not received a royalty from any entity that you ever oversaw the distribution of money in research grants? Have you ever received a royalty payment from a company that you later oversaw money going to that company?
I don't know as a fact, but I doubt it.
Fauci defended withholding the information.
According to the regulations, people who receive royalties are not required to divulge them, even on their financial statement, according to the Bayh-Dole Act.
Fauci has received 2 vaccine shots and 2 boosters. He will continue to isolate while working from home until he tests negative. Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.